And we are back at the EarthX TV stage in EarthX 2025 here at the beautiful Hilton Anatole in Dallas, Texas. And I have sitting across from me a gentleman who's representing a nation that is in the eye of the storm when it comes to the fight for climate change and making sure that we have a sustainable globe that we can all live in. We have, and I want to make sure I get this right, His Excellency Viliami Va'inga Tone. Did I get it right?
Right.
Everybody give this gentleman a round of applause.
Thank you.
I don't think I've ever interviewed like a His Excellency before, but the fact is that the gentleman has earned it. There's a lot going on in Tonga politically right now, and we are dealing with small island developing states who are really feeling the brunt of the rising oceans. But first, before we get into that, I want to talk about the man. How did you get involved in the politics in Tonga, and what made you want to become the ambassador the way that you are now?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Wilson, for the opportunity. Firstly, I want to thank Mr. Trammell Crow for creating this space for us small island developing states to be here and to connect with potential partners and other people, CSOs, NGOs, and so forth. It's a great opportunity. Not exactly a politician, but not a minister, but an ambassador of our country to the United Nations and also to the United States of America. So I'm very privileged and very honored to have that position. And Mr. Wilson, I'm here especially because I'm representing a small island developing states. Of course, we have our differences in the world. There are big countries and small countries. We have the big divisions of the global north and the global south. We happen to be part of the global south. And there are another categorization is developed countries and developing countries. So it's very important that you identify yourself with where you come from, because that can be the start of trying to solve the solution, because you represent a point in geography that has specific endowments, and maybe not as great as some of the other countries, but you are there to be part of the solution. So I'm here to connect with people, and that's why I'm very grateful for Mr. Trammell and some other partners, including Mr. Matthew Trenching from the Island Resilience Partnership, a very notable name here in Dallas. He's been connecting with not just me, but members of the Pacific Island Forum. And Tonga happens to be the current chair of the Pacific Island Forum, which is a regional organization in the Pacific, whereby the leaders come every year to meet and discuss priorities. And if I may, maybe later on in our session, talk about some of my priorities, which includes ocean climate change and renewable energy, technology transfer, and so forth. So some of the big things that I want to convey in our conversation.
No problem. And I'm really glad that you're here, because I'm curious, how has climate change affected Tonga as a nation?
A couple of points I want to bring out, Mr. Wilson, is sea level rise. With the melting of the ice and the increase in temperature, of course, it does lead to the rise in the sea level. And of course, that is a known fact. And that's why we are really relying on data collection and the scientific data, because that's how we get to be convinced about the change in our world. So obviously there is a change in the environment of Tonga, the sea level rise, especially it's seen in the low-lying coastal areas. We've seen the receding of the land and the taking over by waters. The other notable fact that I want to bring to our discussion is the frequency of hurricanes. We call it cyclones. And since 2018, just before I came to New York to start my posting, we experienced the cyclone Gita. I think it was a 6-category cyclone or so. And then a couple in 2019, major cyclones, and 3 cyclones in 2020, and 1 cyclone this year in 2025. Altogether about 7 from 2018. So again, 2 examples, frequency of cyclones and sea level rise that are impacting whether it's agriculture or trying to build back better. And that's why we strategize ourselves to be resilient. Of course, this is an act of God. We can't control the weather. Of course, we can by addressing mitigation, keeping to the 1.5 degrees centigrade. But we have to be resilient. So that is very much a core of our strategy as a country, to be resilient. While we are trying to address the mitigation, not everybody is on the same step in terms of addressing that. We can address adaptation and resilience. So that is a core feature of our strategy, to be resilient, whether it's shown in the improved construction of school buildings so that we can minimize the cost of damages, or just, doing things in a resilient way, agriculture, nature-based solution, so that you can adapt yourself to the changing environment.
Absolutely. Now, I remember, as an American, we don't really do good with geography sometimes in school. And I remember I was first made aware of Tonga because of that volcanic eruption that happened a few years ago. And I was wondering how that impacted your resources that normally would be dedicated to the resilience of the rising oceans. What was, and I don't want to use this word lightly, the fallout of that eruption on your resources that are normally dedicated to adapting to climate change anyway?
Well, firstly, before I answer a question to Mr. Wilson, you speak about school and geography. I'm sure we all learned it right, and we put dots at the end of a sentence.
Yeah.
Well, that's a map of Tonga. It's like a dot in a world map. Well, it's about 100,000 people with 170 islands, with only 46 islands being inhabited. But then we have large oceans, about 700 square kilometers of ocean. So that's why we call ourselves large ocean states. But coming back to the question of the volcanic eruption, yes, that was a very notable volcanic eruption, scientifically speaking. I think it was recorded by NASA and so forth. But the key thing is that to recognize it's not directly related to climate change, just to differentiate it. It's a natural disaster of a different kind. Of course, hurricanes, sea level rise, and the droughts and so forth are attributed to climate change. And so we're trying to be careful there. Because some sectors are very specific about this, but for the volcanic eruption, it's not. But nevertheless, the effect is almost the same. It's ruining things, whether it's infrastructures or disruptions to society. So we experienced that in 2022 on the 15th of January. That's when it occurred. It brings back the importance of early warning system. I think NASA, in Hawaii, there is a station there that receive our notifications and early warnings.
Okay.
So it is very important to address that from a small island developing state to receive early warning. In fact, there was a commitment by the UN Secretary General for all countries to be accessible to early warning system by 2027.
Wow.
So again, it's just a spelling out of the importance of that facility to be available to all countries, because you can be better prepared if you receive the warning ahead of the event.
Absolutely. So what you're saying is that this eruption was obviously not caused by climate change, but the resources that would be used perhaps to be adaptable to any disaster had to be devoted to that, and resources may be limited as it is. And one thing I really appreciate about what you said is that, you may see Tonga as maybe a dot on the map. It's small in size, but when it comes to this conversation, Tonga is huge in significance, because the small island developing states are kind of the canary in the coal mine to the reality of our changing climate. And I was wondering if there was any challenges to generating the political will to actually address it and do something about it, or were you guys pretty much all on board because you saw the reality playing out right in front of you?
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. I think it's very important in our audience, in our conversation, to realize, speaking of geography, that we're endowed with different parameters of, in our countries, with the size of our countries, population, and so forth, culture and location. We happen to be one of the small island developing states, as I said. We call it SIDS in the UN. And we lack resources to address things like climate change and natural disasters. And so we value partnership. That's why we put a big spotlight on the SDG 17 of the Agenda 2030 at the UN, because it speaks about a durable partnership. And that's why I I value coming to EarthX in Taxis. It's an opportunity and a space whereby I can meet with other people. But again, coming back to resources, to technology transfer, there could be low-hanging fruits in developed countries that have the wherewithal of things that can help developing countries. They can assist them to develop, because we have a right to develop it.
Right.
Despite our smallest in size, that we have people that aspire to be educated, to be healthy and productive, you know?
Absolutely. And so one of the things I was wondering about is, are the obstacles purely material in a financial sense, or are there also political obstacles that perhaps you might face in the United Nations for being taken with the gravity that you so justly deserve? Where are those obstacles, and could you describe them for me?
The problem, of course, is quite obvious. You know, as I said before, it's climate change, keeping it to 1.5 degrees.
All that good stuff, yeah.
I think that's all well known. I can say that from the political side, at the UN, of course, we can hold dialogue. We can try to resolve things diplomatically, try to agree on some resolutions. And I must say that there was a resolution put up by Vanuatu, another very small country in the Pacific. It's about having big countries being responsible for their actions. And there was a resolution that was tabled to the General Assembly. It was endorsed by member states in August last year to be submitted to the International Court of Justice.
Oh,
so
wow.
it went there, and it's in good progress in terms of their consideration. Yeah.
So that's one of the fronts that you've seen progress on. Are there any fronts on the material side that have been making progress? Have you been able to finally wake folks up to the truly dire nature of this situation? And is the fact that these hurricanes are getting stronger, that the shoreline is eroding, starting to wake folks up and see that this is very necessary for your nation?
At the beginning, before people were better educated now in terms of early warning system, every time there is, for example, the tsunami, at the very beginning, I can remember that some maybe about 10, 15 years ago, where there is a notification of tsunami, people would congregate to the beaches to see the receding waters, out of curiosity, not knowing that they should be running inland. So over time, there were drills to educate people that when they receive hurricane, the notification about tsunami, that they should run inland. So again, it's about education, making the people awareness to be increased. So there are things that you can do to improve your proper response to natural disasters.
I understand. And so, primarily the EarthX TV audience is in the West. What does the West need to understand about the situation, and what could we do to help out, remove some of the barriers that you're facing to getting the resources that you need to fight this climate change on yours and so all in developing states?
If I can come up with a good example in terms of partnership, something that I stressed at the very beginning, we happened to meet someone by the name of Mr. Matthew Horner, a senior, I think maybe executive officer of a company called Event Wood. They produce metal wood. And we signed an agreement last year in August. We met in EarthX last year. That led to a meeting with our Prime Minister, then Prime Minister, and they signed an agreement for them to help to pilot a project that we can do, whether it's maintenance or build something small, that we can report to the leaders' meeting in September so that we can scale up. So there are two things, as you know, Mr. Wilson, is to...
And it started at EarthX, that's amazing.
Exactly. To pioneer a project, and then you scale it up. So we're going through the pioneering of this project. We will be visiting this manufacturing plant in Maryland early next month, on the 6th of May, so that we can see the production, if we can, or if not, the manufacturing plant. So the idea is that to start a project very soon, in Tonga, because it does link to resiliency that I mentioned at the very beginning.
Yes, sir.
Whenever there is a hurricane, there is a tendency to destroy school buildings because of the status of their construction. So we want to improve the construction of the building, whether the building materials. These are like plywoods, but they're very strong, termite resistant,
Wow.
fire resistant, even bulletproof. These are. So it's the technology of the US, and yet we're standing to benefit by technology transfer. We're collaborating with them so that they can invest in the Pacific. So it'll be a project, a pilot project for Tonga, but the intent is to scale it up in the Pacific Island countries and in a wider sense to 6 countries.
That's amazing. And that began here at EarthX. This is the kind of impact that is actually being had. This is why people show up to this place. And we start to see real world results within a year. So that's amazing. Give this gentleman a round of applause. You guys are really connecting the dots. Is there anything else that we didn't get to, because we're running short on time, that you want to tell our audience to kick us into gear to make sure that we are your partners in addressing the resilience needs of Tonga?
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. As we come to the conclusion of our discussion, I just want to highlight the priorities of my mission and my country that I'm engaged in. I think it'll be good to sort of wrap around. We prioritize climate change, as we talked about. We prioritize ocean. That includes sea level rise and plastics pollution, of course. We didn't get to that, but that's another necessary part of the ocean. And thirdly, renewable energy is one that I prioritize in my mission. I've got a staff that is focusing on that, renewable energy, because we are looking at the ocean as a source of renewable energy, whether it's through OTAC or tidal or waves. In fact, we are working with a company to install an energy wave park in Tonga. It's a pilot project. Again, we want to get through that so that we can scale it up to other 6 countries. And lastly, technology innovation. Because we're a small country, we are looking at technology as something that can help us to leapfrog. We're a small country. I think that is I see that as a requisite tool to sort of speed up your progress. We can't afford to do the turtle walk in terms of your progress. So we see technology transfer, technology and science and innovation is something that we can utilize. And hopefully in a gathering like this, hopefully we can connect to people that have the capacity to be able to dialogue with us so that we can see what we can do from a member state point of view.
Absolutely. You are in a group of people who care, who understand that the emergency is real and want to help generate the political will for you to knock over these obstacles and get to where you need to go. So we've been blessed to hear from His Excellency Viliami Tone. Brother, I'm going to get that right. We're going to cut that and I'm going to say that again.
Okay.
We have been blessed to hear from our good friend, partner, and ally, His Excellency Viliami Tone. Sir, it's been great having you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson. My pleasure.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.